All right, let's take a look at the overview of operations management. And I'd like to just ask you a couple of questions at the outset. From your perspective, what's more valuable, acquiring knowledge or being able to ask the right questions? So I think historically, the acquisition of knowledge was the brass ring. But now that information and data is so available, the ability to ask questions is becoming a much more important skill. And that really requires critical thinking. And so part of what I want you to do in this course and all the course you're taking is to start to really question what the data, the information that you're being given, and ask if it's right and if there are other things that are missing. And so the next question I think you need to ask about is between knowledge and skills, because again, a lot of the coursework we do is to impart concepts and knowledge, but true learning often requires applying that knowledge and developing skills. So it's difficult in a classroom setting, it's difficult in an online class to do skill development, but I am going to assign you tasks either individually or as teams to do problems, to do cases, to work on a couple of projects, and this is all intended to help you develop more skills. So again, the idea of all the, knowledge is important. It used to be knowledge was king, but I think, being able to ask the right questions and being able to develop skills, and that is using the knowledge you have, is becoming increasingly more important. So the other question I ask many of my classes is this: which of these two statements would you agree with most? If I'm successful, and I'll define that as good grades, a high-paying job, it will increase my happiness. Or if I put happiness first, then success will surely follow. So many of us in my generation, I think, opted for A. And I think the science is really starting to help us understand that if we pursue B first, and we put our happiness above other things, then it's the pathway to this standard measures of success is often faster and more satisfying. So, and that gets into what leads to success. And most people will tell you that the key to getting up every morning and being enthusiastic and having a passion is to follow what is in you for what you think is important. So, for some people that's solving problems, for other people that's working with others, for others, it can be a variety of things, but you have to examine, why you're doing what you're doing. And, when I ask first and second year students, why they're here, it's many times students are here because my parents told me to be, and that ultimately is not a recipe for success. Your recipe for success is that you're following something that really interests you. So hopefully now that you're in your third or fourth year as an undergraduate, then you found that passion. And then of course you have to work harder, you have to focus, you have to persist, and all the other things are important. So I'd just like to have that brief conversation. I posted a couple of things in the week 1 folder on happiness and success, which I'm not going to test you on, but I think you may find personally beneficial. So let's talk about operations management. So what skills are required to be successful in the workplace? Is another question, and that we're going to look at throughout the operations management course. And I think always in any course, it's imperative that both the instructor and the students can answer this question. Why am I taking this course? What's the relevance? What am I going to get out of it? And so I'm going to try to constantly come back to this question about why we're studying operations management. and why we're studying each of the topics within the umbrella of operations management. So why operations management? Well, one of the big things that we get out of operations management is to learn from the mistakes of others. And so a big part of operations management and case analysis is to document some things that haven't gone as well, and then try to analyze why that occurred, with the hope that we can fix that when we face that problem in the future. And then of course to prepare for the future, and to figure out how you can help the organization that you go to work for, or the organization that you create, to be successful. So we'll develop some tools that will help you to do that. And then is this idea about how do I actually put a sustainable process or processes in place where I can continually improve things? Because it's one thing to solve a problem or to fix something, but it's another thing to sustain it and to continually make it better. So part of what we'll talk about throughout the semester is this idea of sustainability of ideas, and this idea of continuous improvement, which again we'll come back to, and we'll spend a lot of time on those topics. And I'm a big proponent of everybody. We're a professional school, so no matter what program you're in, one of our key missions is to help you prepare to get a good professional job when you leave. And so I think operations management will open your eyes to several opportunities that you may not have been aware of, that I think many of you, when you come out of our programs will be in a position to explore those things in a meaningful professional way. And okay, so again, getting back to this issue of why. So one thing we should recognize is that preventable errors happen every day in small and large organizations. And we should expect that errors are going to happen, mistakes are going to happen. And we also know that every organization can and often must do better in terms of improving productivity and improving throughput. So this idea of understanding errors happen, figuring out how to minimize them, eliminate them, and then recognize that we have to get more from the resource that we have. So here's a spoiler alert that we'll get into in week 2, which is that the U.S. healthcare system, when measured by objective parties, when compared to others, healthcare systems throughout the world, is cost far too much. The quality is well below acceptable, and the access is not nearly as good as in other countries. So when you look at how much we spend, the outcomes of our healthcare system in the United States, and how many people don't have access or have limited access, it's not a good picture in terms of the United States stacking up with other countries. And while that's a big and major problem for our country, it also creates an opportunity for each of you as you start the journey throughout your career, because I think that there's many, many, many opportunities to improve the operations and the management of healthcare, and many of you will be in the perfect position to enter a career where you can do that over a very long period of time. And that's what I'm hoping many of you will do. So one thing you should know is that preventable errors happen every day in small and large organizations. And there's a very small percentage of companies that actually embrace the mistakes that happen and share the information and do things to bring attention to it, which unfortunately is not the norm. The norm in the United States is that we try to work around problems, we try to fix them before other people find out about them, cover them up, whatever, because we're not a culture that typically wants to seek help from others or identify problems that occur. We prefer to work around them. But what we're going to find is we explore operations management and we explore ways to improve quality, is that recognizing problems and mistakes happen, and being willing to identify them and discuss them without pointing fingers, and is crucial to continuous improvement. So, and that's one of the steps that has to happen for organizations to limit or avoid these things altogether. So, and the reality is that preventable errors often accumulate, and then catastrophic events sometimes happen. So here's some pictures that I think will tell you many volumes of information. So the top picture is, it's called NECC. That was the New England Compounding Center, which was here in Framingham. There actually were several MCPHS University graduates who worked there, pharmacists. And unfortunately, their process resulted in several deaths and other diseases because of bacteria that got into some products that they were compounding. And you see the person here, he was the president of the company, and he was just sentenced to jail. And then the person here on the bottom was a chemist for some department within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and she was not doing her job in terms of the quality of drug screening, and thousands of people had to be let out of jail because of a lack of control in the process. So here's here's Barry Cadden. It was meningitis deaths, and hundreds of families have been impacted by this, and it was all preventable. Okay, and here's the drug lab scandal, which I mentioned. Here's that woman spent 5 years in jail, thousands of people, and again, preventable process controls that were lacking. So one thing you may or may not know is that the number of people who die from preventable errors in the United States is in the tens of thousands, and some people think it's in the hundreds of thousands each and every year. So there was a report that was done in 1998, and at that point, the title of the report was called "To Err is Human," and they mentioned that they're based on their study that 98,000 people were dying in American healthcare systems due to preventable errors. Subsequent studies have reaffirmed that number, and some studies have indicated that might actually be in the hundreds of thousands every year. So we know that that's an opportunity for each of you to figure out, why is this happening? Preventable errors. Why do we have so many preventable errors? And what can you, as a future healthcare professional, do about this? So look at how it stacks up here. So, and different numbers are out there, but a low of 98, a high of 440,000, another study of 120. But what we know is the numbers are significant, and something has to be done about it. So Toyota, which is a role model company for companies that want to improve their productivity, improve their quality, and we're going to look at the Toyota production system, which is something that hundreds, if not thousands, of companies around the world have tried to copy. But even they got off track. And they got off track for a very simple reason, that their company culture was centered on two items: quality and safety. And they felt as if quality and safety were in place, that revenue, profit, and everything else would follow, as long as they kept that as their top mission. And there was a change in management, and the management decided to pursue becoming the #1 automobile maker, as opposed to staying focused on their core values. And problems happened as a result. So, and there are other examples here. I'm not going to go through them all. The space shuttle disaster should have never happened. It was a preventable error that again the process broke down. You may remember the Deepwater oil spill that was on the news for, it seemed like, months. I think it was back in 2010. hundreds of thousands of gallons or millions of gallons of oil spilled into the Gulf Coast, and it was a catastrophic event, very preventable error. So, and it goes on. Okay, so what we know is that every organization, even the best run organizations, can and often must do a much better job at improving their quality and their productivity. So waste and inefficiency happens in every organization. And healthcare may be among the most inefficient and wasteful industries in America. And so you may say that's a big problem. But the flip side of that is that there's a big opportunity for people who have the right skills and energy and talent to want to tackle those problems. So, okay. And here's some source of waste in American healthcare.